There are some moments in games you never forget. Moments where the world takes on new meaning and becomes real. And I often wonder, will it ever feel like this again? I've been thinking a lot about these core memories lately. That Ocarina of Time opening is such a distinct moment in my mental library, and reminiscing back on that moment and others throughout my childhood, it made me wonder, why do they feel so increasingly rare? And why do certain moments stick, while others fade away? Naturally, people connect with vastly different parts of these experiences. Some relate to characters and what perils they're going through. For others, it's the challenge or social moment when they finally defeat that raid boss together with their friends. But for me, it was always the world. Those moments where I suspend my reality and just breathe the world and its story. This video is an exploration of that feeling, and of the worlds that took me in. And by the end, we'll unearth how we can recapture that magic as an adult, and why your brain is naturally wired to hold on to these worlds more than any other memory. Let's get to it. There's one word that describes this feeling of being there better than anything. Immersion. When I think back on the moments that stuck with me, I think it's always the feeling of being deeply submerged in the atmosphere and emotions of the world and story. I've already mentioned that tranquil yet melancholic opening of Ocarina of Time. Though Majora's Mask is my favorite Legend of Zelda game, there's something about the atmosphere as Link rides over that field in the moonlight. Reminiscing further, my mind brought me back to a world I've spent countless hours within. Though much of this world has had a large impact on me, there's one specific city that welcomed me like no other. And maybe you can already tell it from the first second of the music. The first time I entered Stormwind City in the world of Warcraft, I was awestruck as I walked through those gates. As I passed those great statues of the heroes of yore, it felt like I was among legends. From the player's perspective, those large polygonal statues made the myths of the game world seem so much larger than yourself. Even as I played the game on a low-resolution laggy potato of a computer, it instantly made me feel inspired, as if I was a hero to be in the actual world of Warcraft. I will always be a Horde player by heart, but I gotta hand it to Stormwind. That moment was magical. From the reflective tranquility of Hyrule to awe-inspiring monumentality of Stormwind, my last example is quite a bit more simple. This was many years ago, and Yogscast had just started playing this small game called Minecraft. I was spellbound by the idea of a world I could explore, change, and build myself. So I went and got that small Swedish indie game. What I didn't know at the time was the existence of spiders, zombies, and skeletons. So when I, for the very first time, survived a night in my little hut built with wood, dirt, and desperation, I looked out of that wooden door, at the most beautiful sunrise, and the music let me know that I had made it to safety. Every time I hear that same music now, I just feel a little more safe. Mind you, this was very early when Minecraft was still in beta, so it probably didn't look as magical as nostalgia makes it seem in my head. But I don't think that's important. What is important is the feeling that it leaves you with. And having just survived zombies and skeletons, being rewarded with a sunrise. That felt freaking great. So, I got a question for you. Because I know there are a few of you people out there. Why do you turn down the in-game music? The 3 previously described moments all have one thing in common. They use music quite brilliantly to create an emotional anchor. This means that when I hear this music today, it pulls me right back to that moment. And I believe this is the case for many. I'm sure that you have that one piece of music that brings you back to a specific moment of feeling each time you hear it. It could be this. Or maybe this. Or even this. It almost feels blasphemous ending these pieces so early. But I digress. I was talking about immersion before. So isn't all this music a bit counterintuitive then? None of these pieces of music are diegetic to the world. And if you've never heard about something being diegetic before, it's when something is actually in the world, as in the characters in the world would also be able to hear that music. That means that when the music is non-diegetic, creators cannot hear that Icelandic choir. And if the music doesn't exist in the world of the game, wouldn't this pull us out of the experience and thus break immersion? I think that would be a strong argument to make. However, earlier I called music the emotional anchor of the experience. If that beautiful Icelandic choir makes you feel both Icelandic and heroic, you're much more likely to feel an emotional connection to both the old Nordic world and to Kratos. This of course means that the music needs to match the atmosphere and emotions of the experience. But if done right, that is when it harmonizes and the experience becomes magical. Though music isn't a prerequisite, most important emotional moments use music to great effect. And I do think that music helps greatly deepen that connection we feel. And it allows us to reminisce and to go back to those moments, even when they're far back. Because most of these memories come from when we were younger. Why? Why do these core memories always seem to happen when we were younger? Well, it seems to be connected with something called reminiscence bumps. Reminiscence bumps are the tendency for adults to have increased recollection for memories in their adolescence or earlier adulthood. This is not only true for real-life events, but also for our media memories. Some research suggests that some memories are easier to access due to how they're linked with our self-identity, and that they perhaps stick more when they have more influence in defining our identity, especially in adolescence. And when we have these experiences, they can drastically change and develop our ideas and identities. Like other thresholds or landmark events of our lives, these moments in games help shape our tastes and emotions in media. It also seems to be the case that we have more of these moments in our adolescence due to the novelty of experiences. We had many more first time or new experiences when we were younger. That includes games and other media. Our first boss fight. Our first major city in an MMO. Our first Pokemon. Maybe even our first game. We encode more memories when they're new and meaningful to who we define ourselves as. Though sometimes we might also connect with something that we don't quite understand at the age at which we experience it. This is definitely the case for me and my love for Majora's Mask. I was about 7 when Majora's Mask came out, and suffice to say, I understood very little about trauma, grief, and the meaning of the end of the world. But I knew I connected with the world and the atmosphere. Many years later, I remember reading an article about the themes of grief, trauma, and the possibility of Link being dead, and Termina being Link's purgatory. Though many of these theories have been questioned or debunked by now, something about this added subtext and depth to the world only deepened my fascination with Majora's Mask. The same can probably be said for my Ocarina of Time memory. I connected with the journey, the atmosphere, and the world of Hyrule through that scene. What I only realized as I got older was the subtext of that moment. The heaviness of the burden of the lone hero that lost their childhood. As Link rides Epona over Hyrule Field, it's a moment in between the heroism, the monsters, and the dungeons. It's a moment that allows for poetic reflection rather than heroic action. A moment where the hero could lower his shoulders from carrying the weight of Hyrule's fate. That was a bit too deep for my 6-year-old self. So even when we don't quite understand it in those moments, we create meaning in retrospect. And at least for me, this only deepened my love for those worlds. Hey, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider liking and maybe even subscribing, as it helps me out immensely. I do both video essays and more casual comedic commentaries on this channel, so please check it out if that's your thing. Either way, I appreciate you. Back to the video. The theories behind reminiscence bumps suggest that these moments happen less and less as we get older, and less experiences feel new and important in the same way. I guess you could say we get more jaded as we get older. But that doesn't mean that they don't happen at all. We just need to allow them to happen. As mentioned, I think immersion is a very important component in really connecting with these worlds and moments. But adulthood and modern distractions have made pure immersion harder to achieve compared to when we were younger. There's work, responsibilities, social media, notifications, and so many things fighting for your attention all the time. Sometimes we even end up optimizing our own free time, forgoing wonder for efficiency. Many even forget what it is like to play a game fully blind. No guides, spoilers, or anything. We end up chasing progression to validate our own free time, as if it was work. When we were younger, we let ourselves be immersed in that one novel experience. For some, that one game might have to last a long time. There was no hurry to completion. There was you and that world and journey ahead of you. Despite these distractions, I've been fortunate enough to have some of these experiences in more recent times. Times where I, in my adulthood, have felt just a bit of that same fascination and connection to a world. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last to yap about this game. And I won't spoil it here, but please consider playing Outer Wilds. When I first solved everything in Outer Wilds, and I got that ending, it just clicked. Though this was half that feeling of world connection and half that of the achievement, it made me fall in love with the lore of that world. I know Outer Wilds for me had a bit of a sunk cost feeling, where I had ended up spending so much time trying to figure out the world that it just felt amazing once I pieced it together. It was so worth it once I finally got there. And I of course have to mention From Software games. While many memories of those games come from the achievement of defeating that one hard boss, they quite often also masterfully craft these magical, or rather, imposing worlds. Kinda like the cathedral in Cologne, Germany, From Software's worlds are both grand and foreboding. But still they have moments of awe. As the first time you leave the tutorial cave in Elden Ring, and you're met with a vast, wondrous world. I think just the size of that place alone was incredible. You just somehow knew that this game would spellbind you for many hours to come. I remember that I had to stop and take a deep breath. That was mere minutes before I got absolutely wrecked by the tree sentinel, as is tradition. Being a huge Zelda fan, I of course had the same feeling when opening up Breath of the Wild for the first time. Minus the huge armored dude smashing me to bits, of course. I've also recently had this feeling with Bloodborne, as I explored and tried to create meaning from this mysterious world. For Bloodborne, it is 100% the unique aesthetic of the world that pulls me in. When the moon suddenly shifts and the whole world seems to change character with it. It feels like the perfect mix of gothic, cosmic horror. It also allows me to be my true inner edgelord. I do kinda understand why Miyazaki is careful about who gets to touch this world, though a remake would be absolutely magical. Hey, Editor Grimnir here. This info came out as I was editing, and what a surprise! Guess Bloodborne is back on the menu, folks. A R-rated feature-length Bloodborne animation movie, and Jacksepticeye is involved. I'm so excited to see how this pans out. Must be an amazing opportunity to be part of such a project. I know that these examples all have one thing in common. I let myself get sucked into them. From fans talking about the importance of staying spoiler-free and immersed in Outer Wilds, or my own love for a certain developer's work. I know every time a new From Software Souls-like or Legend of Zelda game comes out, I stay as blind as possible. And I let myself be immersed, removing as many distractions as possible. I think what all these types of moments have in common is that we can connect deeply with them. And even the ones that are sad, melancholic, or scary, they feel great because of that connection. And I think that is what art can do. It lets us connect with stories, worlds, and experiences in a way that feels profound. And I think that's important. Which is also why I think we should chase those moments more. Sometimes turning up the game's music and ambience, and turning off the second monitor video. Yes, also this one. Can help you achieve this feeling. It is so important to be present in that world, to allow it to really affect you. Just as when you were younger, and you didn't have as many concerns, responsibilities, or things that incessantly called for your attention all the time. So next time you boot up a new exciting fantasy world, Remember to come with only your utmost attention and willingness to be enchanted. Allow yourself to be immersed. So, now you've been listening to me reminiscing about worlds and moments that are stuck in my head. What moments and game worlds are stuck in your head? And thanks for making it to the end. If you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me tremendously. This video was very world focused, and even though this is what has meant the most to me in my media memories, I know from many other people and from many other games that the characters and challenges that you can overcome are just as important in creating these memorable moments. I know for me, the relationship between Kratos and Atreus in the modern God of War series is a masterpiece in character-driven storytelling. I also fondly remember the first time I defeated Ishin, the Sword Saint in Sekiro, or recently when I had the most cinematic end to my fight with Gwyn in Bloodborne. But I wanted to keep this video a bit more focused on the game worlds, immersion and the feeling of being present there. Maybe those other moments would be fit for another video another time. Either way, I hope you'll share a moment or two that games have left in your memories, and what feels special about them to you. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, and so long, until I find you again.